Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about computers, basically a little bit of a history lesson, not much. First thing I want to read you is the basic definition of a computer. I think it's a little bit important. The basic definition of a computer is a device that computes, especially a programmable electronic machine that performs high-speed mathematical, logical operations, or that assembles, stores, correlates, or otherwise processes information. Now, by basic definition, there's a few different things that could be called a computer that a lot of people wouldn't think about. First, I want to just show you. Everybody knows what one of these are. That's a laptop. There's also desktops. Everybody knows those are computers. But, just as a quick thought, a lot of people don't realize your very cell phone is a computer. It does the same stuff. Maybe not as much, but does the same stuff. Alright. So, with that in mind, there's a long line of history in computers. It starts back. First, I'm going to tell you, the very first computer, or digital electronic computer, that was built in 1937. After that, in 1941, the first machines were built that included binary numbers and were programmable. The very first ones were mainly built for the government, and they were used to decode German messages. One of the downfalls to a lot of these older computers, number one, was the size. They took up full rooms, full walls, nothing that would fit on a desk. The other thing was to reprogram them, you mainly had to rewire the whole thing. There wasn't a such thing as just going in and typing in a bunch of stuff and you reprogram the computer. In the 60s, they started making them smaller, and they also started making them less expensive. More and more people started being able to use them. They were considered to use less energy, but put off a lot of heat, which led to the possibility of the damage on the computers. The cooler the computer is, the better. Also during this time in the 60s, microprocessors were introduced, and Intel was one of the first companies that started building the microprocessor, which everybody knows who Intel is. In the early 70s, Xerox came out with the first workstation. It basically consisted of a monitor, a graphical interface, which is nothing more than a video card, a mouse, and an Ethernet card, which is your network or internet card. But with all this, it would by no means fit in a small box. They were all still fairly large pieces, and there really wasn't a lot to them. In the 80s, Apple came out with the Mac, personal computer. Everybody knows Apple, and everybody knows the word Mac. We didn't have a lot of computer companies out there that were giving a lot of competition to companies such as IBM. IBM at this time hired a company that everybody knows about, Microsoft. The man who runs Microsoft, Bill Gates, and he's the one that helped create the first operating system. Also in the 80s, things like CDs, compact discs, which was introduced by Sony and Philips, and the first laptop came out at the end of the 80s. If most of you remember, they were small, they were bulky, they didn't do much, but that was when the first Windows was introduced, and it was introduced with basically Word and the basic operating system, which is nowhere near what it is today. In the 90s, improvements were made on processors and on the operating system. Not only was Microsoft coming out with new versions of DOS and Windows, there was also Apple, Linux, putting their mark on the operating systems, which Linux is a variation like Apple. They're both Unix-based operating systems. With the advancement of computers like video cards and sound cards and all the resources that are getting put into these computers, a lot of advances have been made in video games, movie players, and the internet. So many things that you can do on them now, when basically they used to be nothing more than big calculators. I mean, that's all they did. Now we've moved into everything is like a computer. As we went into the 21st century, we now have the option of not only having personal computers that sit right at the top of our desk, but also laptops that you can take with you that weigh less than 5 pounds, and We even now have a computer that fits in the palm of your hand. Now, of course, I said the cell phone, but there's also, you know, the Palm that has the operating system and your Blackberries. And if you look at it on a timeline, you know, the advancement of computers has gone so fast, and it just makes you wonder how much faster it'll go within the next 50 years. So, it was short. I hope y'all took a little bit something from this. Thanks for listening to me.